Hey everyone, it's Mike Andes, and you're listening to the Landscape Business Course podcast. Today is a interview or call, I guess, with James, who owns a lawn care business down in Georgia, and his girlfriend actually interviewed me for a podcast and an article several months ago, and so she asked a favor and for me to talk to James. So she got in, and I was able to talk to James for about 30 minutes. The video did cut out halfway through our call, but most of what we talked about was caught, so hopefully it helps someone out there, and let's go ahead and roll the tape.
This is James.
Hi James, how you doing?
Doing good. Is this Mike?
This is Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
Fantastic. Sounds like Brianna kind of set this up for you?
Yeah, I actually just found out about it like 20 minutes ago, so she kind of sprung it on me, but I'm super excited, man.
Cool, awesome. So you have your own lawn care business then, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Cool. Tell me a little bit about it. What do you do?
So, 4 things we kind of focus on. I've been listening to you for a while. When I first started, I would get myself into any kind of project. I did tilling, sod, all kinds of stuff. Since then, I've shrank down to where I have 40 customers, and we do weekly or bi-weekly mowing, bush trimming, pine straw, and mulch. And as much as we can, that is the 4 services we try, or I keep saying we, it's me and a part-time person right now. But that's what we try to focus in on, is those 4 things. That being said, I'm at 40 accounts, and this is the first year we moved the 2 prior years, so I kept having to kind of like stop and start over and rebuild clientele every time we moved. This was the first year I started with a good number of clients. And now I'm kind of running into, I guess, some growing pains. Mm-hmm. I've got a decent client list, around 40 customers, but I'm still not really making what I expect to be making at this point. Mm-hmm. And I'm also my goal is to be at 60 by the end of the year, but I'm in this weird in-between stage where I'm not really making enough to hire a full-time person. But I need to grow to make more, and I also need to see about bumping up prices, and that's something I'm still getting comfortable with doing, because typically I wait until the first of the year to bump up prices, and I don't think I have that kind of time frame to work with right now.
So right now, like you have the part-timer that just kind of joins you, I'm assuming, on like projects and things like that?
Big projects I use him on, however many days, and then I have him 2 days a week where he comes out and helps me cut yards, just to make sure that we get everything done, and make sure that if I do need to throw in a project at the end of the week, I have the time available. Okay.
And are you doing any sort of advertising, or like most of the growth is just kind of coming organically right now?
Most of the growth is coming organically. Our biggest thing that has worked for us this year has been Nextdoor. Mm-hmm. Just posting, just making a post on there, and I've got a pretty good return off that. Probably about 12 or 13 of my customers this year have come from Nextdoor alone.
Okay, cool. And then, so like getting to 60, do you think that's just going to happen pretty much organically by the end of this year, just to kind of doing what you're doing now?
Well, so I'm getting a good bit of the organic growth, and my phone will ring. I get at least probably a couple quotes every week, and I'm here lately. I've been closing on more, which I feel like I've heard you talk about. When you start to close on quite a good bit, it kind of feels like maybe my prices are a little too low. Mm-hmm. But what I'd like to do is I would like to do like a direct mail campaign, and try to bump up to 60. Like, we're not actively marketing, and I know that we need to be. Again, I'm just in that in-between area of, if I do get the influx of an extra 20 yards, I don't know how to keep up with it because I can't afford a full-time employee yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, so like the part-timer, could they flex to being a full-timer or not?
They could probably do an extra. I could probably bump them up to 3 days a week, but they don't have the availability to do 5 days a week right now.
Okay. And then in terms of your schedule, are you just kind of like working all day, all night kind of thing right now, in terms of like getting the estimates out, all that good stuff?
Yes, this is a kind of daylight to dark, 6 or 7 day a week thing right now, between cutting the yards, trying to go out and give estimates. I've got a lot of project-based work, mm-hmm. Like the mulch and bushes and stuff like that, since COVID hit, which has been kind of surprising. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of taking for most of the week, really, for me to just keep up with that, and then to come home at night and trying to stay on top of the invoices and everything as well.
How far do you book out your little projects usually, like a week or so? Is that kind of standard?
Normally I've got about 2 weeks booked out. Anything past 2 weeks, I'm still figuring out scheduling. So booking more than 2 weeks out, I end up having to move stuff around so much anyway. It's not really worked out well for me so far.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Why do you feel like if you did grow, you can't afford a full-time employee? Like, right now, like in terms of revenue, you have the 40 customers, you have yourself full-time and another part-timer. I'm assuming you're doing like 12 to 14,000 a month in revenue. Is that right, or is that higher than what you're doing now?
That is actually a good bit higher than what I'm doing right now. Right now, I land between 8,000 to 10,000 a month.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And then which market are you in, James?
We are in North Georgia.
Got it. Okay. So it is a little bit lower there. That's fine. Cool. Okay. So like usually if you were in our market, for example, I would be saying like you should be more around like 12 to 15,000 in revenue, but it's just standard of living in your area, and the cost of living is a lot lower. So, what do you charge per hour in terms of to the customer right now, or shoot for?
So the goal that we shoot for is $60 an hour, $60 per man hour. It's been probably about 2 or 3 weeks since I sat down and broke down a week's worth of work, but we were hitting around like 42, 43. So we are coming in lower than our hourly rate. And I think that's probably part of the issue right there.
Okay. And is that, when you say 42, 43, is that on the job, or is that like when you look at your whole clocked hours for the week?
That is our whole clocked hours for the week.
Got it. Okay. It's not super bad when you start looking at it, because it's including all your drive time and everything, right? So it means that probably on the job, you're more like $50 to $55 per hour.
Correct.
So it's not so far off. Okay. And so what I'm trying to kind of figure out by asking these questions is like, why do you feel like growing right now is you can't afford it? Because if you can make $42 to $43 per hour of clock time, and in your market only have to pay someone probably, $10, $12 an hour, is that pretty much going rate?
Somewhere in there. Right now I'm paying $12 for the part-timer, so yes, sir.
Yeah, so $12 an hour, like, if you have to pay someone $12 per clocked hour, let's say 15 with taxes and all the rest of it, but they're able to generate, say, even $40 per clocked hour for your business, definitely that first full-timer that stays with you in the truck is ultra profitable. Like getting another truck and all of that, I do think that might be down the road, but like the first thing I would say is get someone in the truck working with you.
Okay.
Because the reason that they're going to be ultra efficient is, number one, you don't have to go buy more assets like a truck, equipment, etc. And then the second thing is you're with them all day, and so they work very, very quickly. And
Gotcha.
so like generally your first and your third employee are your most efficient, because your first employee is exactly where you're at right now. They're in the truck with you all the time. You can watch over them all the time, and you don't have to buy any more trucks or equipment to get them to be working for you. And then your second employee, though, that's when there's a drop in profitability, because now you have to get another truck. Usually you have to go get some storage space. All the costs of overhead start to pick up. But then the same thing happens with your third employee. You should always be, go from 2 employees to 3 employees as quickly as possible, because that third employee, you can just throw in either a truck with you or a truck with another employee, and you're good to go. And so like your first employee, like this one that you're kind of getting up to now, there's no reason based upon these numbers why you cannot, quote unquote, afford them. The only thing that you can't afford right now is the amount of, you don't have enough work for them, I would assume, like for a full-timer to be with you. Is that correct?
Correct.
So what I would do if I was you is you're going to start marketing, and you're going to start actually, putting some money into whatever, whether it be, door hangers, or if you do some sort of every door direct mail or digital, whatever it is look out 2 weeks where you're booking out right now and start booking as if you had someone with you. Because when you start paying for the leads, you're going to get an influx of leads, right? And so you should be able to close more work, and that should, like literally, you need to go from 2 days a week with an employee to 3 days a week. You literally need 2 or 3 small cleanups every week, let alone like more, or you literally need a few more customers on mowing. The thing with mowing customers, as you get them, it's more of a lagging. It takes a little bit of time, right? Whereas with the projects, if you go out and start advertising, and like you've noticed with the whole bush trimming and all of this stuff after COVID, this is a trend I've seen across the whole landscaping industry of a delayed spring rush, and people are getting their spring cleanups now in the middle of summer, where there's we have a huge opportunity for weeding and for bush trimming and for really small landscaping jobs, because now these people have stimulus money in their hands and they're not going to go do a $10,000 project patio. They're going to do a $2,000 or $1,000 cleanup and put some mulch in. And so that's a huge opportunity, and that's what I would go market if I was you, because you're going to get residual leads for mowing and for recurring services off of those, and you're going to build your database of customers that you can market to, that you have their email address to. But then furthermore, you can book out your schedule. And literally, like I said, you only need 2, maybe 3 extra leads converting every week on those small projects to turn into having a full-time employee being with you on the truck.
Gotcha. Okay. So market for the bushes, the mulch, the pine straw, market for the landscaping style work, book out 2 or 3 of those 2 weeks in advance, and then that right there gives me I understand what you're saying. That gives me the leeway basically to hire on that full-time person.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about that first person too is usually I'd encourage being really selective, etc. The thing is, you're with them all day long, so they don't have to be this incredible employee. They just need to be able to work hard and want to please you, basically, right? And so, when you start getting your second employee and they start working without you being around, that's when it becomes, you really need to have higher quality people and professionalism and accountability and all the rest of it. But for that first person, you need someone that can literally do the small stuff. If you don't even have them mow, if they just do weed whacking and blowing off when you're mowing, and then when you do a project, they just need to wheelbarrow, pull weeds, it's really basic stuff, And so that first employee is usually the lowest level employee in terms of skill that you'll need, as well as, in terms of pay, you shouldn't have to pay them a whole lot either, because you're not expecting them to drive and do a lot of complicated things or go solo by themselves and figure out how to use a software. This is the most profitable employee is that first person in the truck with you.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I understand the apprehension, oh man, I don't know if I can fill the schedule. So that's why you use the 2 or even 3 week thing. Well, hey, I'm gonna go market, but everyone that I book right now, I'm gonna book for starting August 1st. And then I would use a calendar, you can use a digital one like Google Calendar, or a Team Up is what we use. It's a free app, or you can use just for now at your side, just a piece of paper on a calendar, whatever it is, to just book out your schedule starting August 1st as if you had an employee. Which right now, like I said, is only going to mean adding maybe 3 more, cleanups in a week. And literally, if you do some door hangers, you do some Facebook ads, you do whatever it is, 3 leads converted each week is pretty easy, right? That's not a huge ask.
Exactly, because again, I feel like without the advertising, we're converting 1 or 2 a week. So I really, and I think that's been where my apprehension has come from is I feel like with us getting so much naturally that whenever we do make a marketing push, I feel like there is going to be an influx. And what if I'm not ready for it? What if the quality of work drops? Things of that nature.
But that's the beautiful thing about paid advertising, right? If that happens, you just scale back the amount of advertising that you're doing, right? And so that's why paid advertising is nice, because you can turn on and you can turn off the flow of leads based upon how busy you are. If you do advertising for a week and you get way too much work, then you just turn off the spigot for a couple weeks, right? And then when you're only now a week or 2 weeks booked out, you turn the spigot back on, right? And so that's the lousy thing about organic is it comes in waves and it has dry spells, whether based upon demand, based upon weather, based upon, economics. Whereas with paid, you can kind of turn that spigot on when you want it. And so that's what I would recommend doing is looking at August 1st as the time, okay, I'm going to have an employee. I'm going to, maybe mow Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, and Thursday, just for example. There's going to be all cleanups and project-based work. And so you know that you've got to go out and you've got to get 2 or 3 or 4 cleanups per week or small little installs to fill those 2 days, but that your other days are covered, right? And so I would assume you
Yes.
probably mow about 3 days a week. Is that right?
Right now, and that right there is another issue that I'm running into. It's taking me 4 days, almost sometimes into a fifth day, just for us to mow 40 yards. And I think part of that is that we're still kind of spread out. And that right there is another question I kind of had for you is like right now, about 10 of my yards are actually 30 to 40 minutes away from where the majority of my my route is. And I've been going back and forth. On the one hand, they're 30 to 40 minutes away. I would love to drop the accounts and try to fill them in with spots locally. But that's also giving up almost 25% of my monthly revenue if I drop those 10 accounts. And so I've been anxious about just cutting them out, essentially wondering how long will it take for me to replace them.
If you had an employee with you in the truck, would it take you a full day to do those 10 houses?
Yes.
Okay. So I would keep it for now. 30 minutes, 40 minutes, you go out there, knock them out. I assume you probably make $500 on those?
We're right over 4, so again, a little lower than probably where we need to be, but
Yeah. Yeah, so like even if you have to pay an employee, let's say $120 off of the 400, 380, like you're still going to be profitable on those for now. Like you'd probably want to raise your prices next year on those ones specifically to account for all the drive time. But as long as you have a full route, I would say go for it.
Okay.
If I was you, I'd probably try to get 1 or 2 at least as soon as possible just to make up for that drive time right off the bat. Like if you went and got an extra 2, like make that a long day. Like where like when you know that one's on the route, those ones on the route, it's going to be a 10-hour day, but you want to make sure you have a full route. You don't want to go there and work for 6 hours. You want to go there and work for a solid 8, 9 hours when you're there. And so I would really focus on trying to get 1, 2, maybe 3 even more mowing jobs in that neighborhood or in that area when you drive that far.
Gotcha. That way it's covering the cost of the employee for that day and everything like that, the extra drive time and all.
Yeah, just a percentage thing, right? Like if you got to drive 40 minutes, it means that 80 minutes or an hour and a half almost is being spent on driving, which if someone works 8 hours in a day, that's 20% of their day is spent driving just to and from, let alone between jobs. And so if you can get that percentage down to like 10% by simply making the day longer, where they work for 11 hours on that day, get that percentage down of drive time, then that helps a lot.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. And so just because I want to make sure too, so because we've been talking about raising prices and everything in the middle of the year just because we have felt like we're priced kind of low on some of these customers and all. Would you recommend doing that now? Or would you recommend doing that at the start of next year, which is what we've typically done?
Mm-hmm. Like based upon your clocked time rate, which if that's accurate, I would say you're actually for your market not super, super low. And the reason I say is because if you're charging if you're getting $42 to $43 per hour of like based upon clocked hours, then it means like you're more like $55 per hour when you're actually mowing, right? Which in your market is not super bad. I think it's a tiny bit low. Like I'd like that to be over 60. Right? And I'd like you to be solidly over $45 per man hour clocked when they're clocked in. However, I think going mid-season, like in your market right now, is like crazy hot and the grass isn't growing very much.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd hate for you to lose 10 of your customers simply due to the fact that they're like, okay, yeah, great, you're raising prices. Let's just go ahead and pause services for a month or two. Right? Like you'd rather keep them on board. You want to raise prices when demand is really high. And that is when the grass is growing like crazy, and if they call any other lawn care provider in your area, they're going to get back to them in like a week with an estimate, right? And by that time, it's overgrown. And so I would really push you to wait until either like September when it starts growing a little bit faster, or wait until, like you said, next year. But never raise it in the winter, never raise it in the middle of summer is my general rule of thumb, unless you're just completely overwhelmed with work organically and you're not paying anything for advertising, then you should raise your prices immediately.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay.
So if I was you, at that marker, like if that's an accurate number, $42 to $43 per clocked hour, I think you have the latitude to get a full-timer to work with you. They're going to be the most efficient with you. I think you could easily get to $12,000 in revenue monthly revenue if two of you are both working full time, and then next year you raise your prices and you get to more that $14,000 to $15,000 range, and that extra $2,000 is like sheer profit.
Okay. Okay, good deal. You're saying a lot that I've thought for a while now, and it's finally making sense. And I think it's just been to be honest with you, Mike, I think it's just kind of been a fear thing of making the jump or something like that. So
yeah, a lot of times when it comes to numbers, because you're dealing with small numbers, right? And so like a lot of times what happens is like, okay, well, I only have X amount in my bank account. Like that's literally, I should have like, 10,000 or 15,000 in my bank account because I need like a reserves. But the thing is, it's only you working, right? And so when you're dealing with small numbers, you got to realize that like if you have someone working full time at $12 an hour, they're going to make all of, $2,000 a month in revenue, in cost to you, right? You have to ask yourself, like, will an employee make me more than $2,000 per month if they work full time for me? Absolutely. Like they'll at least make you $4,000, at least if they're working with you, right? And so you just got to look at like that. And like for me, like a lot of what you probably just needed from me is like just permission to go do it based upon, and the reason I can say like you can do it is because you're making $42 to $43 per clocked hour. And if you compare that against $12 per hour paid to the employee in clocked hours, that means that you're running like a 27, 28% of revenue going to the employee, right? And so at that level, I always would give someone a green light to go for it.
Okay.
And then that being said, you're going to know that, hey, probably next year or even this September when the grass starts, I'm going to raise my prices, which is going to give you the opportunity. You need to do that because when you go to hire your second employee, you're going to have to hire someone a little more skillful or a little bit more autonomous that can work without you. And that person's going to cost a little bit more. There's going to be more overhead. There's going to be a truck. That needs to be accounted for in the price raise, right? And that's why I actually think you need a price raise, is because the growth future after that first employee is going to cost money. But right now, in the short term, you can definitely afford a full-timer to go with you in the truck.
Okay. Good deal. Okay. And quick question about that as well. I know typically you recommend doing things kind of like job fairs and all that when searching for talent and everything, but I know with COVID it's a little harder to do things like that. Do you have any other recommendations, or is it kind of just, set up Zoom calls and do interviews and see what you can get a feel for? I was just kind of curious how you guys have been handling that and all with COVID and all. Yeah,
like the job fair thing isn't going to work until you're larger. Because when you have at least 5 employees, just because you need to have some sort of a culture, it needs to be seen like, hey, like I'm showing up to a job fair at like more of an established company. But right now we've been doing in-person interviews still. I get the Zoom call thing, but like there's just so much you can't pick up on a Zoom call when it comes to hiring somebody. And so we've still been doing in-person, like they can come in the office, wear a mask if they want and things. I don't know about your state's restrictions, but for us, like we can do that if we're masked and all the rest of it, right? So I still really recommend doing an in-person one. But that being said, I really truly believe that 7 out of 10 employees that you would interview would probably at least quote unquote work for the current position you have open because they're going to be working with you all the time. They literally just need to be able to like come to work on time, because any employee when they're working directly with their boss is going to work as hard as they can all day long, right? So you don't have to worry about the whole like you leaving them in a truck and saying goodbye in the morning, because that's not happening right now. Now, that being said, if that person isn't a great employee, you might have to let them go next spring when you do get a second truck and you need someone to be more autonomous. But for now, you're going to get away with a lot, because in terms of hiring, like you don't need an all-star $15, $18 per hour experienced worker right now. You just need someone that can learn, that can show up on time, and can follow instructions, right? And so, because you're going to be there to be able to ensure quality, you're going to be there to make sure they've done everything right. That being said, if that person doesn't pick up their level of quality and their level of skill, they might be on the cut next spring.
I got you. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Sorry, I don't know how much more time you have here. I'm running through my list real quick to see if I have any more questions.
You're good. I got about 5 minutes, so go for it.
Okay. One question I do have, and this right here is another thing that I'm struggling with, and I'm just want to make sure I guess I'm understanding right. Whenever we quote landscaping jobs, the mulch and pine straw and things of that nature in the bushes or cleanups, we're trying to do, again, $60 per man hour. There's some of these jobs where in our market, what am I trying to say? $60 a man hour, the price comes out so high that for a lot of people in our market, I do hear no quite frequently with those. Is there, I mean, whenever it's cleanups, whenever it is landscaping projects like that, would you suggest a different rate, or is it just kind of just keep giving quotes until you get people willing to pay? It's just some of like, we did a cleanup 2 weeks ago where we went in and trimmed bushes, cut out a couple bushes, things of that nature. And it was a $600 or $700 project that we knocked out in a couple hours, and luckily the homeowner went for it. But I give quotes like that all the time, and very rarely do they get accepted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like this is why a lot of people question why we have a lower rate for projects versus mowing, right? Like for mowing, we have a higher rate than we do for cleanups or projects, installs, etc. And the reason for that is because you're at the property the entire time, right? Like you could probably go to $50 per hour on those because you have so little drive time and wasted time. You're still going to be over $42, $43 per clocked hour, right?
Okay.
So I think you could go to 50. That being said, what percentage of your estimates are getting accepted right now? Like on just like ballpark.
Ballpark right now, for over $500 landscaping projects and all that, I'd say maybe 1 out of 4, 25%.
Okay, so yeah, then I do think you should need, like in that scenario, one of two things need to happen. Either A, you raise value, like you might watch the video I made last week about raising value, or you got a lower price, right? And so I would traditionally push you like to increase value. And that is have a better website, have a uniform, have your trucks painted, like all of those things add value, especially the website part and like social media and things like that. But then in the short term, like an easy fix, which you don't want to get addicted to, is the reduction of price, right? And so
correct.
I think long term, I would definitely say you need to work on the value side so you can charge the $60 per hour and people pay it because they see value in a website. And the fact that you have painted trucks and you have uniforms and you have insurance and all these other things, that adds value, which eliminates the price question, right? Did you watch that video last week that I made or not?
I actually did.
Cool. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. Like, so basically, like, that's the way you want to be focused long term. Do I think in the short term, like the rest of this year, I would go down to 50 to get that full-time employee working for you? I do. Like the reason I'm okay with it too is because if you're paying someone 10, 12 bucks an hour and they're making 50, the numbers still work out, right? Like in our market, if
correct.
We have to pay someone a minimum of $18 per hour, like there's no way in the world 50 bucks an hour is going to work for us, right? And so it's just a numbers game, and I think that for now you could lower your price to 50 for projects, but still be shooting for $60 per hour in your mowing, like definitely, because when you shoot for 60, your clocked hour rate will still end up being like 42, 43 like it is now. So I would say you could probably lower to 50 for your projects right now, as long as your average hourly rate to your employees is like 10 to 12 bucks an hour. But again, like next year when you get trucks, when you get more skilled labor, stuff like that, you might need to get that back up to 55, and a couple years down the road go to 60. But again, in that process, you should be increasing value, which is the website, having more employees, having more skilled people, all those systems in place that produces value to the customer.
Correct. Okay. Mike, I appreciate it. I seriously, I cannot thank you enough for this. It's given me a lot of confidence. You've answered a lot of questions that I've had, and I've kind of been stagnant here for a little bit, and now I feel like, okay, I kind of have a plan for the rest of the year here to kind of get me on to the next step here, hopefully. So thank you.
No, my pleasure, man. I really think that first employee is an absolute green light. Like I would say, like I said, I would start planning for August 1st to be when you do that jump, and then start booking jobs out as if you had an employee starting August 1st. So that way you can confidently hire, their start date, and that the moment they come on board, you have enough work for them. And like I would definitely say green light for that. After the winter, after the slow season, that's when I'd go get that second employee, invest in the truck, et cetera, raise the prices to accommodate for those extra costs, and then just keep rolling.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. You got it. All right.
All right, James, you have a great day. Thanks for the call, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mike. You too.
Later. Bye-bye. Awesome. So I hope that helps somebody out there. If you're just starting your business in the same kind of position as James, I think some of the takeaways from the day was about the first and the third employee being your most profitable because you don't have to buy another truck for those scenarios. If you get your first employee, they can jump in with you and you don't have to go buy another truck, or there's no more fuel, there's no more equipment you got to buy. Maybe having another body in the truck affects your fuel economy a little bit, but not very much. And so very, very profitable employee because the only cost is going to be variable, and that's labor. And then, same thing with your second employee. It costs a little bit more because you got to get a truck. You got to get another truck so you can do estimates, or you can do 2 routes. Third employee, though, very profitable because they can jump in with either you or another employee and be very profitable from the get without the need for more trucks, more equipment, etc. So that was a great takeaway. Another great takeaway was the correlation between what you pay your employees versus what you need to charge your customers. And, in our market, some people say we're really expensive, but the thing is, we got to charge our minimum rate that we got to pay employees is $18 an hour. Most parts of the country, that's going to get you a very, very skilled labor with years and years of experience in the landscaping industry. In our case, that's like starting rate. If they just can show up to work on time, right? So just very different in terms of where you're at, but that correlation and those numbers I think might have helped some of you today. So hopefully that helped you. If you want more information, go to landscapebusinesscourse.com, become a member there. Or if you need us to build your website, improve the value like we were talking about with James of your business, go to lawncarewebdesign.com. We'd love to help you there. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next time.